Hi, hello everybody, and welcome back. This is Wendy and Barry, the owners of Passel Estate, here for our regular monthly live stream and wine chat. So really happy to see you, and please, if you're online joining us, do send us some likes and some hearts and some comments so that we know that we've got you there and we're chatting to you and tasting with you, and also so that we can answer any questions you have. Which reminds me, I can't actually see comments at the moment. Let me just make sure I can. If you write any comments, great. Today, very exciting, we are going to be opening a couple of back vintages from 2015. It doesn't sound terribly ancient, but it is actually our very first vintage at Passel Estate. Here's the Chardonnay that Barry's holding. And really exciting for us because it is our first vintage, and also because it was such a there we are. We're doing a Cabernet and a Chardonnay. Such a delicious vintage for Margaret River, and we'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. It's also quite exciting because we are about to send out the November selections and deliveries to our new wine club members, and included in those deliveries are a bottle of each of these fine museum wines. So we thought it'd be a nice opportunity to taste them, see how they're evolving, and have a chat with you about all things vintage 15 or whatever else you would like to talk about to do with wine. Why don't you talk a little bit about the vintage, and I'll pour us a Chardonnay to start with.
Yeah, sure.
And we've got a heart. Hello, whoever sent us a heart. Thank you.
It's a welcome back for me as well. I haven't done one of these live streams for a while. I've been down in Margaret River for a few months, and then in quarantine when I got back. So I've unfortunately been prevented from doing them. So it's great to be back, and great to be doing them again, and hopefully we'll have a few people on that we know today. So let's just talk about 15 as a vintage. Our first vintage, as Wendy was saying, it was a cool vintage, and a tough one in many ways, and particularly in relation to bird pressure. So one of the things about Passel Estate is that about a third of the estate is natural bush, which is obviously a lovely home for birds, as well as lots of other amazing little creatures. But it does mean that we're always at risk of the birds coming after the fruit as it ripens. So that's just one of the things that we deal with on an annual basis. But it was particularly bad in 15 because the marri trees didn't blossom that year, so the birds were really attacking the fruit in a way that was worse than usual, let's say.
It was part of the vintage for 15, as I'm sure many of you will know, joining us from Margaret River. It started out pretty wet. There was a lot of rain in the winter, so the fruit set and the flowering was impacted for the vines, which is partly why we had lower yields at the end of the day. But it also impacted the blossom in the marri. So again, there was a little bit of blossom in 15, but it was very, very small and very late, and so the birds were particularly hungry. And it was our first vintage. We hadn't purchased our bird nets yet, so we purchased them very quickly after that, ready for our vintage 16. So we did have a very low yield, but absolutely impeccable fruit, as is the case across Margaret River for the vintage 15. Really fine tannins because the rains we had later in the summer as well, and the cooler nights towards the end of the ripening period meant that the red fruit, the Cabernet in particular, had those longer hang times, which meant it had that time to really develop and ripen the tannins. So really, really silky, soft, lovely tannins in the reds, and just beautiful fruit all around.
Yeah, very, very fine tannin. I do remember it as a season where the nights were particularly cool. In 15, there were some lovely warm days, but the nights I remember being quite chilly. But that was good for the fruit. It produced some stunning red fruit in particular that year, as Wendy was saying, because we had these lovely long hang times of the reds, and it just allowed them to develop at their own pace and not lose any of the lovely aromatics that was there. So it was amazing fruit, just not very much of it, sadly.
Yes. And the yields on the whites were a bit better because we managed to harvest them sooner. They're ready sooner than the reds, and so we didn't have the same yield problems, although we had some of the bird pressure. And again, really, really beautiful acids, really lovely flavour profile. And at the time, the Chardonnay had, when I can remember it comparing to the current vintages, a bit more of a citrusy style of fruits. Then we're seeing in our subsequent vintages a bit more stone fruit, a little bit riper. So this one, when we first made it, at least, was much more. Well, you were going to say Chablis-esque, which was a Ray Jordan comment as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe a little leaner and
let's
more
see if it still
minerally, but still you can tell that it's the same style.
Still like nice and creamy mouthfeel, but it still smells the same to me. I guess it's not that old. So 15. We're currently on our 17s and 18s. Is it lovely?
It's lovely, and then actually one of the sommeliers at a restaurant here in Singapore where this wine is on the wine list has also tasted the 16s, and he's very much a fan of the 15. Prefers it of the two, and I think that simply was the climate of the two. So 16, a slightly warmer year probably. And
and therefore made very slightly differently in terms of how much secondary fermentation, because obviously everything has to be in balance with the fruit. This to me is I always used to call this one a shy Chardonnay, and it is still a little bit shy, not shy as it was. It used to take a little while to come out of its shell, especially if it was a little chilled when you first poured it. And you pour it, and I mean, it's always beautiful as it is right now. I used to love having it at dinner parties and things when everyone's saying, "Oh, lovely, lovely Chardonnay, Wendy, lovely Chardonnay," and then we all get sort of to our second glass, and it's really opened out, and it's astonishing. People are really wowed by it. So this is still quite shy, but actually some of those lovely, slightly, I'd say slightly nuttier flavors are a little bit more
starting
present
to
now
come out.
than they used to be.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be the case you just simply couldn't serve this very cold because all of the wonderful aromas were just too suppressed. But whereas the 16 was a little bit more robust in that way. But if you did have it at the right temperature and it wasn't too cold, you got all of the lovely aromas and bouquet from it and tastes. I mean, I agree with you. It is stunning. It's definitely starting to develop some of the secondary characteristics that you'd associate with Chardonnay. They're starting to become stronger.
So this, very similar, of course, to how we always make our Chardonnay, and I'm sure many of you know. Sorry, we've got some more hearts and lights. Thank you. Send us some comments. Let us know what you're drinking, please, and what vintage. That'd be interesting as well. This Chardonnay spent about 10 months aging on the lees in French oak, about 35% new, so a slightly higher percentage of the new oak than I think we've had in more recent vintages. And the secondary malolactic fermentation, the secondary fermentation that we do just to soften the acidity a little bit with all of our Chardonnays, because it's the profile we're looking for. We obviously don't want to disturb too much any of those beautiful fresh fruit fragrance, but we do want everything to be very balanced, and so we do the secondary fermentation. This one, maybe because it was a cool vintage and a little bit more citrusy, we did slightly less than normal. We did less than 25% secondary fermentation. Normally we do almost 30%. So I mean, I don't know. My palate's not clever enough to spot that in the taste. I just know it's a beautiful, balanced brown Chardonnay, a bit shy. It's still got those citrusy, fresh flavours though. I mean, it's really still very fresh.
Very fresh,
and quite age-defying, young tasting.
I'm looking forward to the day which is coming soon, where one of the things we'll be able to do at the tasting room is do a vertical on Chardonnay and on Cabernet as well, hopefully. So we can actually show the differences that come through year to year on climate mainly.
So I love that Barry says that we if you're in the wine club, the new wine club, lucky you're going to get a bottle of this in the next week or so in your delivery. But only one, because we haven't got much museum. We didn't really know what we were doing when it came to holding wines back in our first year of Passel Estate. So for all of our 15s, and we didn't make many wines in our first year either, we've really not got enough museum. We've only got a couple of cases here and there. I remember Bruce, as we were merrily selling the wines, loving it, it was all selling. Bruce said to me one day, "You're holding some wine back, eh, Wendy?" And it was a bit of a light bulb moment. So we have got some, but it's not very much. So Barry's wonderful ideas about a vertical, that'll be a pretty rare occasion when it includes the 15s. But don't worry, we've got our act together. We are putting aside a little bit more from subsequent vintages. And as I say, in the wine club, what we'll be trying to include to make things a bit special this November are a couple of these bottles. If you're in the Discovery Club, you're getting one of both of these, and if you're in the Provenance Club, we're also adding the 15 Shiraz. So yum. But of course, if any of you have joined the club or are thinking about joining the club, you actually have an option to turn around and say, actually, I don't want that, Wendy. I'd like this selection. I'd like to curate my own selection. So no one's stuck with what we suggest, but we have suggested something lovely. And I should also say, although we've started the club run, if anybody watching, and I'll mention it again later when a few more people have joined, if anybody watching would like to join the club and take advantage of obtaining these wines, feel free. As long as I hear from you, maybe send me a direct message or join the club and send an email. By next weekend, I'll make sure that you're included, and we'll send you that selection email, and you can enjoy it with us. So anyway, I think this is absolutely delicious. A little bit more nutty still, but still, I mean, still as young as ever, as fresh as a day.
Very, very fresh. Yeah.
Really creamy and gorgeous.
Yeah, I'd forgotten just how nice it was.
Right. Have we got any stuff it away for ourselves anywhere? I don't know.
Sadly not.
Maybe hidden in Margaret.
Unfortunately, you sold it all without telling me you'd done it.
Really lovely, really lovely. So come on, guys! I can see you're on because you're all sending me lots of hearts, which is gorgeous. But we must give us some comments so that we're chatting to you rather than to ourselves. But whilst you're thinking about what to say and what to ask, let's open the Cabernet, shall we?
Yeah.
So
2015 Cabernet core range, Passel Estate.
So this is really, I mean, it's always amazing because they're all our first vintage, and we have such nostalgia for that time, of course. Really nervous because it was bringing our wines to the market for the first time, but also really exciting. Hello, Catherine. Hi there. Lovely to see you. And you're drinking the Chardonnay. And I know that you have some of this 15, or you did have, I don't know, maybe you drank it last time, some of this 15, because I remember you buying it. I remember you drinking it on one of these live streams. So you are a very lucky lady. But anyway, nice to know what else you're drinking. Another beautiful domain Chardonnay in Macau.
But you're going to have to put the Chardonnay down now,
I'm
afraid.
I'll bring it back again later. So I was just going to say, for those of you that don't know, the 2015 was our first vintage, and because Barry and I are slightly crazy, impulsive people, we built a cellar door and created this whole beautiful concept of Passel Estate before we'd sold a single bottle. So we launched Passel Estate with I don't know if you've seen it, a beautiful brand new cellar door. We had a soft launch in time for Christmas in 2016, but we formally launched in January 2017 with our 15 wines. And all we made was a Chardonnay, a Shiraz, and a Cabernet, which isn't very much. And because the fruit was so delicious, as Barry was explaining earlier, Bruce, our wonderful winemaker, was absolutely insistent that we had to make a reserve Cabernet. So we did. So we split what was already a small yield to make a reserve, the Lot 71 Reserve, 15, that I know many of you also already have. And so then that was obviously still maturing in its barrels when we were opening our cellar door to the public for the first time. And we had these 3 wines. And, that was it, to try and get people to come and taste and enjoy. And so what's interesting about that, I'm dying to take a taste.
It smells absolutely incredible. And it's the Cabernet that we get from the block, which this is produced from, which is almost 30 years old vines and really hitting their straps, but it produces a very distinctive aroma, which is classic Margaret River, absolutely classic Margaret River.
What are you smelling? Tell us what you're smelling, and then I'll finish my point.
The first thing I get from it is basically an almost a licorice smell to it.
Already? Wow.
Yeah, it's...
a bit of an ease.
You've definitely got an ease on there, and that seems to be that particular block of old Cabernet produces fruit which is really pronounced in that aroma and that taste, and it's very distinctive. It's very strong, and you find that across the whole of Margaret River. You get that black fruit, a nice spice to the Cabernet. It's very distinctive for the region, but this has it in buckets. It's quite special.
And you really notice it in the reserve. But shall I finish the little point I was coming up to about it, as this being our first vintage and coming to market quite soon after we made it, we bottled it. Well, the first thing we did was put it in our first ever wine show. The Margaret River Wine Show got a gold medal. Of course, we were absolutely over the moon with that.
First ever gold.
First ever gold. And I remember when we went to that exhibitor tasting, we were so excited like little kids. Now, of course, we're a bit incredulous if we don't get a gold somewhere. It was so exciting. And then we got some more golds. This has got a little collection of golds and 95 plus points. But this is a little unique. This is the one wine, and this is quite interesting, I think, the only wine that Passel Estate has produced which is not a single varietal. We have blended a teeny bit of around 12% of Merlot in this core, not in the reserve, only this bottle, this one only, the 2015 core Cabernet Sauvignon from Passel Estate has 12% Merlot. And the reason we did that, well, there are a couple of reasons. We're always trying to make the best wine we possibly can, and that was particularly cool vintage, but also, and more importantly for us, we had to come to market with a bottle of Cabernet that was drinking really nicely already. And so blending that little bit of Merlot, on Bruce's advice, of course, just makes it that little bit more accessible and a bit more drinkable and a little bit earlier, so that we were genuinely able to welcome you to the tasting room, pour our 3 wines, and you'd love them all. There was a risk otherwise that it wouldn't really be ready, and we could hardly open. Well, we could have done, but we didn't choose to open with just a Shiraz and just a Chardonnay. So this is a unique and an exception to our general philosophy and what we produce, in that it's not single varietal, but it's just a tiny touch of Merlot, and that just was really to sort of soften the tannins a little, make it a bit more approachable, probably introduced a bit more fruit complexity, but you can barely, I mean, taste.
Not anymore, and certainly at the time, if you were to have compared the Cabernet, which had spent longer and was a straight
the reserve,
Cabernet,
you mean?
The reserve, it was the tannins were much heavier, so it took a little bit of a while to soften out. But this is, as when you're saying, the only Bordeaux blend that we've ever made. It'll probably be the only one we ever do, because we
do like doing single varietal or tasting a Passel Estate. But then this tastes very much tastes of Passel Estate, but it's got that little bit of red. The red fruit flavors are a bit more prominent. And actually, again, this is tasting really young to me. I mean,
it's very fresh still.
It always had those velvety tannins, but they're still there. They're still very present. Bit chalky, nice, huh?
Yeah, I mean, delicious, absolutely delicious. It's,
of course it is.
It's very smooth, and that's probably also helped even with 5 years. There's
really nice.
Buckets of tannin in there. We should actually say that, well, this was our first ever gold medal, so a wine that's very close to our hearts for that.
Do you get them?
The latest version, the 17 Cabernet, has just taken a gold medal from Decanter, and not the reserve, the core version.
The 17 of this, only single varietal.
So that tells you something about the fruit that's coming off that block in terms of the quality of the fruit and
I think
the taste of
let's say cheers to Andy, our viticulturist and our farmer. He does amazing work, and year on year we just improve and improve the viticulture, and it shows. And Catherine, you're so miserly with your Passel Estate wines. Don't worry, we'll send you some more. Must be shared with good friends. So yes, I do remember your early purchase, because I'm sure that when we opened, I think we did the Cabernet tasting. Did we do the Lot 71 reserve tasting? And you had, Catherine, a 15 core, and we were all very jealous.
Yeah.
But now we are. And actually, I mean, you are a member of our old wine club, I know for sure. But you can, if you'd wish, join the new wine club, and Macau is no obstacle. We will send you wine wherever you are. Yes, and the early days. So when I met you, Catherine, I also remember it was literally in the weeks in which we were launching. I mean, I don't even know if we had formally launched. I think it was January 2017, and you were with the Fabulous Ladies Wine Society, and I had been invited to lunch, and had brought my wines, and I remember you purchased there, which is really amazing. And it's so nice that you're still here, staying in touch and keeping up. It's just lovely, really lovely. Thank you. So what else can we say about it? I can also taste a little, and maybe I'm making this up in my head, but I'm pretty sure I can also taste a bit more of the slightly toffee flavour that comes. But it's still very young. I mean, it's still very young and very fruity.
It's still very fresh. It's still got all the wonderful fruit flavours there. And that is a characteristic again of I think all Margaret River fruit, but especially on the reds is. It is like dialing up the volume in terms of flavour, fruit flavour. It's very pronounced.
There's definitely more red fruit now. Yeah. I don't know if I've forgotten it always had more red fruit than our current vintages, but that I got some really strawberry flavour then.
It's still got that chocolate though, that bay leaf, just all the lovely classic ripe Cabernet flavours, without being jammy in any way. It's still very fresh fruit. It doesn't.
This you could still sell this for a long time. If only we kept more back.
They're still good, great tannins. Yeah, it's.
We should have kept more
getting
back.
a little bit. Well, we didn't have very much of it. That was the problem.
No,
I
but
think
also
sort
we
of
didn't.
we'd have had even less if we hadn't put some Merlot in this one. I think.
Oh yeah,
So,
crazy though, the lack of museum. I can't honestly. I don't tell you how few cases we have. Very few. Let's just put it that way. So very few. But yeah, as I say, lovely opportunity to get some soon. I don't know whether to stick with this or go back to Chardonnay because I do like the Chardonnay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm staying with this for the moment.
Would you? And it's so nice that Catherine's chatting with us. Yes, great memories. We had great memories, and I'm sure we'll get an opportunity when borders reopen to create some more, Catherine. I look forward to that. Do we have space to expand? And yes, we do need to make more. You're right. We have. We've already expanded the Chardonnay. We've planted additional Chardonnay, and we do have space, and we've done the soiling tests, and we have incredible soils. But it's a little bit. I mean, we are impulsive, crazy people, but it's quite an undertaking to put in a new vineyard, as we discovered when we did that with the Chardonnay. So we're just trying to settle into the estate a little bit and get the brand recognised and get the wines selling and just get into our groove a little bit more as a sort of business proposition. It's all very passionate at the moment, but it needs to be a little bit more of a business proposition. But we absolutely do intend to plant again, and almost certainly the additional plantings will include more Cabernet because our property is just sensational for Cabernet. We couldn't be more lucky. Lovely gravelly soils, which help with the whole ripening thing. Right on the border of the Abrupt Warcliffe, just 4 k's from the ocean. So we've got those lovely breezes coming across. We're so lucky. We really are.
We are, and
so we will be doing it, but I'm not sure.
In terms of that, there are a number of things that are happening over in the vineyard over the hopefully over the next year or two in terms of the new Chardonnay block coming online, and hopefully probably not this vintage but next being able to produce a fabulous new style of Chardonnay.
We're hoping to watch this space. I don't know about, as you say, this vintage, but soon we'll be ready to do a Lot 71 Reserve Chardonnay as well. So that's already going to expand right there, our offering. But we don't have ambition to make lots of different varietals and huge amounts of wine. We do, our whole philosophy remains making the most beautiful wines we can from these core varietals, which are very well suited to the Margaret River climate and terroir and the winemaking philosophy that we share obviously with our wonderful team, Bruce and Remy, in small quantities because it's special and we want everybody to have that affinity with the vineyard. When they buy a bottle of this wine, when they taste this wine, we want them to taste Margaret River. So that is going to remain the core of our strategy, if you like, whatever happens. But you are right. We could do with making a bit more, particularly the Cabernet.
There is, as Wendy was saying, a wonderful 3-hectare block which has been soil tested, is perfect for Cabernet, which is actually right next to this Cabernet block. So that would be where we would plant, and that's at the moment we're just doing a new dam there on the property. Just sort of needing more water, basically. Yes. In terms of we wouldn't be able to put in another block without a little bit more water.
Well, because the other thing is, of course, so young vines. To explain that, Catherine, we don't necessarily irrigate our grapes every season, but for the young vines, when they're first establishing themselves on their rootstocks, they do need irrigation. Well, depending on your philosophy, but we give them a little irrigation to make sure that they establish themselves really well. For the long term, but also much to the absolute consternation of our viticulturist, Barry and I have been known to irrigate the bush because, as you know, we rescue critically endangered western ringtail possums, and we are trying to replenish both the bush blocks and some of the bush corridors so that these lovely little creatures survive. They are genuinely critically endangered, and they're fussy little things, and they will only eat the most moist peppermint leaves. The most moist leaves and flowers that they can find, and so where we have the soft release enclosures is by the creek, so that's okay. But we have where we released the first of our little possums in 2012 or 11, in fact, before our first vintage of the old vintage when we used to sell our grapes before we made Passel estate wines. Up there was a little bit dry, so we did ask our farmer to run some irrigation into the bush. He could not believe it, could he? He was really unimpressed. So anyway, here we are. We've run out of water, so we need to expand the dam. I was going to ask you, with the slightly redder red curranty strawberry flavours that are you getting that as well?
Yeah.
Would you pair it any differently? I mean, I know we always talk about your amazing skills in the kitchen when it comes to beef.
Yeah.
Would you think of something different for this one, perhaps, or
No.
would you no?
No, not at all. Definitely, it screams out for a nice big juicy red steak, and yeah, it's it's a marriage made in heaven, I think.
And it's interesting, of course, because we've now got this chocolate bonbon pairing that we do in the tasting room, which we pair with our Cabernet, and that's got parmesan.
It's got parmesan and porcini mushroom in it, so it's all savoury and quite a.
And it's got a herb. What's the herb?
It's bay.
Bay. So how would that go? To me, that may be a little bit strong alongside this. Maybe this one, if we were going to do it alongside this one, which we haven't, we've prepared this bonbon, crafted it completely bespoke to pair with our 2017 Cabernet, so it's a perfect match. I'm just wondering if thinking out loud, whether you would change any of those profiles. I guess we'd have to talk to our chocolatier, who's more crafted at this than us, Nadia Haskins. Yes.
And these bonbons are quite incredible. They're like wine in some ways, and they actually, the flavours within the bonbons do develop over a period of weeks, become stronger and age, if you like. It's so they've got a fairly limited shelf life in terms of staying consistent to be able to pair it to the wine. I mean, obviously a longer shelf life in terms of being able to eat them, but just the flavours become very pronounced. So it starts off quite restrained on the porcini and the parmesan side, and that starts to become very pronounced, and then it becomes a little bit too dominant. So that's when they are still in that sort of beautifully balanced stage, it's an incredible pairing with the Cabernet. You just there is a mulberry jelly that goes through it as well.
Oh yes, the mulberry jelly.
So you have the black fruit jelly, and then you've got this sort of porcini parmesan sort of truffle in there, wrapped in dark chocolate.
Because we call it a wine and food pairing discovery, but we're giving all the secrets away.
Yeah.
It's not going to be much of a discovery if anybody watches this.
But it's a discovery. It's certainly a discovery for your taste buds when you put it in your mouth. I have to say, it's quite something. It's they all are. I mean, Nadia did an incredible job in producing them, and she's a master at what she does.
Master chocolatier in Margaret River, so she's local. She uses local ingredients, but I think she trained in Italy, I believe, and she also has a business, Harlequin Desserts. So we're very privileged that she's working with us and creating these specifically for Passel Estate and our wines.
You can find her at the Margaret River Farmers Market on a Saturday morning, selling her incredible wares. Yeah. If you're looking to buy a dessert and don't have time to make one and want to buy one that's made so well that you probably never make it yourself.
I was going to say, why would you? Yes. So look, I mean, we've been chatting for half an hour. Catherine, thank you so much for engaging with us. We do have 28 reactions. Somebody with an angry face. I hope that was a mistake. And everyone else with lots of hearts. Thank you very much. But you're the only person who's chatted to us, so they're all feeling a bit shy, everybody else. So thank you very, very much, and it's so lovely to see you again.
Must be because I'm back.
Maybe it's because of you. Maybe, yeah. No, it's good. No, it's good. And I know that what normally happens is a lot of people will view us later. It's not the most convenient time for some people now that fewer people are locked down, although, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere it's changing a little bit. So I guess we'll wrap it up. But again, for the benefit of anybody watching us subsequently, these beautiful 2015 vintages are not for sale. We don't have very many of them, but in the Wine Club, they are being included in the November selections for the new wine clubs. If you go on our website, you'll see the wine clubs, the Discovery and the Provenance. They're commitment clubs, but they're very flexible. And although we've actually started the process for this November, the wines will be dispatched to the members next week. If anyone's watching this and they want to participate, please just get in touch. You can either direct message Passel Estate from Facebook, or email me, wendy@passelestate.com, or sign up into the wine club, and I'll get in touch. If I receive a membership before we dispatch them, I'll get in touch to see if you would like to participate. And as I say, we have curated a really lovely selection, including these museum wines. But the way our club works is that we send you the selection, well priced as well, of course, and with your club discounts and some. But you are absolutely entitled to turn around and say, that looks very nice, Wendy, but I'd rather you send me this and curate your own. And it's very flexible.
You can't ask for any of this.
Yes. One bottle.
One bottle.
Yes,
Yeah.
one bottle per club member at the moment.
But you can't say I'll have a case of that.
No, okay, so we haven't got enough. So thank you very much. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this delicious 15. Are you going to cook something lovely for dinner?
I am, and I see a steak in your very near future.
My near future, wonderful. Really nice to be chatting to you all again. Again, thank you, Catherine, for participating and commenting. We will probably do one more of these in early December, just before the Christmas season. And then, of course, we've also got a lovely event for those of you in Margaret River and in WA, the summer solstice at Passel Estate. It's our first celebration of the summer solstice in Margaret River. What's that? Only for us, Barry, not for you. Yes, exactly. We're not allowed to drink it, but we could give it to you, the wine club. So we have the summer solstice celebration. Tickets are on sale now for that, which is going to be amazing, with Cassandra Charlick and her Gypsy Jazz trio, 3 incredibly talented musicians, all locals and yet simultaneously international in terms of their experience and their performance credentials. And we've got hampers and wines and some special things again for the wine club, including a little bit of a private tasting with our winemaker, amongst other things. So check that out if you're likely to be able to get to Margaret River in December. And otherwise, we'll see you at the beginning of December, and stay safe. And thank you so much again for joining us. And enjoy the rest of your Chardonnay, Catherine. And we'll see you on that
Thank
side.
you for joining us, everybody. Great to be back. And we'll see you in December.
Thank you. Bye-bye.